Hello again, everyone. So this week is Buffalo week. So I'm going to start off by giving a shout out to my good buddy Josh Doan, who is a huge Buffalo sports fan. So I'm going to give a little shout out to him as I start this week off. So hopefully, Josh, you like these videos, and hopefully all my followers and all sports fans out there, you also like my thoughts on the Buffalo Bills of the NFL and the Sabres of the NHL. I'm going to start with the Sabres of the NHL, seeing as the NHL season is kind of coming up to a close. The conference finals have now been decided for the Stanley Cup, so we'll see who represents the West and the East when the Stanley Cup final rolls around. But Buffalo clearly was not going to be one of those teams because they finished last in the league. Unfortunately, with the draft lottery, they dropped in the number 2 overall pick, so McDavid won't be playing in Buffalo, which I think is a shame. With McDavid going to Edmonton, I think that's going to stifle his career more than anything. I think Buffalo would have been a great spot for him. I wanted McDavid to go to a Canadian market, so looking at who could have got the first overall pick between Edmonton or Toronto to be a Canadian market, I think it's better that he goes to Edmonton than Toronto. When you look at a Canadian market factor, but when you look at the Sabres in Buffalo, they're practically a Canadian market. You got the Niagara region right there, you got St. Catharines right there, you got a lot of people who jump over the border to catch Sabres games, so the Sabres are kind of, in a sense, a Canadian market themselves, and I think he would have been a nice fit for the Sabres, but alas, that's not going to be an option for them. They do have the number 2 overall pick, so they could get Eichel, they might get Strome. Unfortunately, with all the hype McDavid gets, I'm not that knowledgeable on other guys that are going to be drafted until it gets close to the draft day, and analysts are looking at OHL players and that kind of stuff and who's going to get drafted high. The number 5 guy, I probably wouldn't even know his name right now, to be completely honest with you. So it's going to take a lot for scouts to look into it. The Sabres do, like I say, have that number 2 pick, and if they maybe think that Eichel or Strome or who's going to be in the number 2 pick won't be a great fit for them, then maybe they trade down or something with that pick, and they see if they can acquire, like the 5th overall pick, and then get like an early 2nd round pick too. So we'll see what happens with that. Because when you look at their team, they made a lot of trades, obviously, at the trade deadline kind of thing, but they didn't acquire a lot of picks in those trades. And the picks they did acquire, like 5th round picks in 2016. Their earliest pick they got is the 2nd round pick, but that's not until 2017, so that's still a couple drafts away, kind of thing. So they didn't acquire a lot of picks, but I think they got some pieces that now they can build a team around. Obviously, the biggest trade was when they traded Stafford, Armia, Lemieux, and Myers, as well as the 1st round pick in 2015 for Kane, Bogosian, and Kasdorf, if I'm pronouncing all those names correctly. So looking at Kane, in the 37 games he played this past season, he had was 4th overall pick back in 2009 kind of thing, so that's pretty solid for him. That he's been able to turn a career around, make a career for himself. Again, he was just born in 91, so he's still young, and in those 37 games he had 10 goals, 12 assists, so he's a guy that I think Buffalo can build around and can now have a solid player to build around in their forward scheme kind of thing. Bogosian is a defenseman. He was the 3rd overall pick back in 2008, and he had 3 goals and 17 assists, and he had in 62 games played between Winnipeg and Buffalo kind of thing. So he's a solid young defenseman. They also have 2 first round picks from the 2013 draft on their defensive scheme kind of thing. They got the 8th overall pick in Ristolainen, who had 8 goals and 12 assists. He was just born in 94, so he's still a pretty young kid. And then the 16th overall pick back in 2013 was Zadorov, who was just born in 95, so he's even younger than Ristolainen. Then he had 3 goals and 12 assists in just 60 games played. So you got 2 young defensemen who were drafted in the 1st round in 2013. You got Bogosian on there now. Then you can look at some other players they have. They got Mazaris, who had 7 goals, 7 assists. Weber had a goal and 6 assists in 64 games played. Georges didn't have any goals, but he had 6 assists, and that was just in 46 games played. And then Benoit had 1 goal and 8 assists in 59 games played. But I definitely think their defense is going to continue to grow when you have 2 guys that were just drafted in 2013, Ristolainen and Zadorov. You're going to have a young defense, especially when most teams only carry 6, maybe 7 defensemen kind of thing, and you got 2 out of those 6 or 7 that were just drafted in 2013. They're going to be young, so they're going to take time to grow and develop, and I think those guys will do that for them for sure. Flipping over to the forwards, I've already said Kane that they picked up for sure. Brian Giunta, obviously the veteran on that team, 36 years old. He had 13 goals, 22 assists this past season. And then Molson, another veteran on the team, he had 13 goals and 28 assists this past season. So they do have some veterans on that team for sure. Hodgson, I'm going to consider him a veteran now. He was the 10th overall pick back in 2008. He only had 6 goals and 7 assists, so I think he's going to have to step his game up for sure if they want to find success. Larson, who's a young player, just born in '92, he had 6 goals and 10 assists in just 39 games played, so I'm going to expect to see probably some more ice time, more games that he'll be in next season for him. Verone, who is a player born in 1990, he had 3 goals and 2 assists in just 28 games played, so we'll see what happens with him there. They also have Foligno, who was born in '91, he had 8 goals and 12 assists in just 57 games played. Ellis had a goal and assist in 39 games played. Delorier, who was just born in '91, he had 5 goals and 10 assists. Ennis had the best season, I'm going to say, of all the Sabres this past year. Ennis had 20 goals, 26 assists. So that's solid. So they definitely have players that can produce. When you have Kane, you got Hodgson, you got Molson, you got Ennis, you got Giunta. Like they have star player in Hames. They have guys who can produce. But they have 2 very young players who were just born back in 2012 with the 12th overall pick and the 14th overall pick, respectively. You have Grigorenko and Girgensons. Again, I apologize if I pronounced those names incorrectly. I'm sure Josh will give me a hard time on that while he's watching this, so if I pronounce those incorrectly, Josh and fellow watchers, I apologize. Grigorenko, though, this past year, he had 3 goals, 3 assists in just 25 games, and Girgensons had 15 goals and 15 assists in 61 games. They were both just born in '94, so they're still young guys. But like I said, with Girgensson having a 30-point season in just 61 games kind of thing, if he can get into a full season next year, I think he can easily be a 20-25 goal scorer kind of a guy. He could potentially be a 50-point getter in a season. I think Ennis has that potential. I think Foligno, if he plays a full healthy season, he has the potential to be a 50-point kind of a guy. Hodgson, I think he definitely was the one who kind of had a rough season and didn't produce that I think he needed to. A guy like Hodgson, when he only has 6 goals and 7 assists, Hodgson needs to be a kind of player that can get you 20 goals, kind of thing. So he'll definitely have to step up. Larson, 6 goals and 10 assists in only 39 games. I think you'll be seeing a little bit more of him. Matt Molson, he did have a solid season with 13 goals, 28 assists, so there's 41 points right there. I think he can easily be a 50-point guy as well. So they have some solid forwards, and they got some young players that you can build a team around. And I think Sabres fans know that you're not going to turn this around in one season. You're not going to go from the worst record in the league to making a playoff appearance in one season. It can happen. I mean, things like if you look at Colorado, stuff like that happens with the Avalanche, obviously, most recently. So that could happen in Buffalo. It's not unlikely. I mean, it is unlikely, but it's not a non-possibility kind of thing of happening. It could. So we'll see what happens. But to finish this segment off about the Sabres, a successful team has to have a successful goalie, and they had a lot of different goalies in that this past year. You had Hackett, they had Johnson, they had Lindback. They do have a guy called Makarov, who was born in '93, who back in the 2013-2014 season in the ECHL, he had a .906 save percentage and a 2.79 GAA, so maybe we'll see if he's on the team this year. Lindback, who played between Dallas and Buffalo this past year, he was 6-16-2 with a 3.11 GAA and a .909 save percentage, so decent save percentage, but not the greatest GAA. Johnson was 8-8-1 with the team, he had a 3.08 GAA. Hackett was 0-4-1 with a 4.32 GAA. So they need to find a goalie, and I think the best way for a team to find a goalie who can be the guy between the pipes is find those teams that are successful, because they have great goalies. So you can look at Carey Price with the Canadiens, Dubnyk with the Wild kind of thing. Maybe Backstrom can regenerate his career and come to Buffalo kind of thing. I think that's where you can try to find a goalie, is go to those teams who have elite goaltenders so their backups aren't seeing a lot of playing time. They maybe only get in 10 games a year, and see if they can come and grow with the Sabres, or maybe reinvigorate their career with the Sabres kind of thing. I think that's what they need to do, is try to find a goalie who can produce for them. You're not going to find an elite goalie in free agency. You're not going to trade for an elite goaltender kind of thing. I don't see that happening. but you need to find someone who can stop the puck. At least a guy who has a 900 save percentage, but can get their GAA not at the 3.1, not at the 3.08 level, but more at the 2.5, or even lower than that would be great. So good luck to the Sabres as the offseason comes around, as the draft's coming around. We'll see what they do with that second overall pick. And thank you again all for watching. You can follow me on Twitter at gham614. I will be continuing Buffalo Week tomorrow with my look at the Bills of the NFL. Thanks again. Bye-bye.